Raiders fans, get ready for a wild ride with the latest news. This matchup feels like a decision point, seriously. The final two games have turned into a test of the future and the draft, and the coaching staff is holding back a massive piece of the roster. There is business talk coming in hot that could shake up the locker room, and one name is gaining real momentum even inside the building to run the offense. On top of that, a dependable defender is waiting on answers from the front office. Stick with me because the last one is the kind of story that has the fan base arguing hard. But before we crack open every detail, real quick, subscribe to the channel and drop a comment with what you expect from these last couple of weeks. The voice of who lives and breathes Raiders football matters here. Here's the deal. These final two games are basically the measuring stick for what this team can be in 2026. We are 2-13, tied down at the bottom, and it hurts to even say it. Still, you can feel a little hint of there is something here. Against the Texans, the offensive line finally gave Ashton Jeanty room to breathe. It was not perfect, but the runs were cleaner and more decisive. The defense hit too. It played at the level we have been begging for all year. The loss happened fine. But I saw a team with a pulse. Now it is Giants and Chiefs to close the season. And this is not just two more games. Against the Giants, it is a direct fight for draft positioning. It is the kind of Sunday that can change the direction of the franchise without anyone lifting a trophy. And there is another angle most people are not putting front and center. The Chiefs game is massive too. They have been on an ugly losing streak. Their offense looks stuck. From what is being said, Chris Oladokun is expected to be the guy in charge again. That changes the script because the win chance becomes very real. But then you get to the part that has fans in silver and black feeling uneasy. The team already shut down Max Crosby's season early. He will not be on the field these 2 weeks. The message is clear. The front office wants to protect his body and also not mess up the race to the top of the draft. To be honest with you, I get the logic, but I cannot pretend it does not hit me. A divisional game is not an exhibition, especially against Kansas City. There is rivalry. There are players who live for this kind of game and refuse to coast. And there is a detail that matters. We have not won a single divisional game this year. That stings the pride. The last time we beat an AFC West team was back in 2023. So imagine getting to the final week, seeing the Chiefs with a bunch of guys on injured reserve and still asking for self-control to not win. That is too much to ask from players fighting for contracts. That is too much to ask from players who want respect in this league. The locker room does not run on spreadsheets. It runs on film, contact, and reputation. And let's be real, everybody loves ruining the Chiefs' day, and that is human. On paper, the ideal draft outcome would be losing both. But if the offense keeps clicking, you can beat the Giants and the Chiefs, yes. And then the math hits. Win, you slide in the draft. Lose, you climb. I want your read right now. What sits better with you, a win with teeth or a loss with the future in mind? Drop your take in the comments because this is a fan conversation. And hold on, because in the next story, the topic is not just resting a player. There is already big business talk involving Max Crosby. This could be an earthquake for the Shield. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Sitting Max Crosby right now is not throwing the game the way a lot of people are yelling about. It is a business decision. And whether you like it or not, the NFL is built on that too. The team is 2-13. Our hands are dirty with losses. And when a season turns into that, you start protecting what is valuable and mapping the next step. The truth is, Crosby is the kind of guy who does not play on low volume. He plays like every snap is the last snap of his life. That is why, when they told him he would not be back these 2 weeks, he got so upset he even left the facility. Pete Carroll confirmed it. You can imagine where his head was at. He is just win baby in human form. But the franchise is looking at a bigger board. And here is something a lot of people miss. The league almost never punishes tanking in a direct way. What happens is teams make moves that make everything weaker without writing, "We are trying to lose" on paper. There have been situations with draft-related incentives and ultra-young rosters. There have been teams switching quarterbacks in prime time, and nobody made it an official scandal. So when people call this tanking, I get the anger. But league history shows a huge gray area. Now, the part that really heats this up is different. The idea of trading Max Crosby. And before you blow up at me, breathe. There is a heavy argument here. He will turn 29 before next season. His contract is very tradable. And the cap math changes everything. There is a scenario where a deal creates low dead money in 2026 and opens up massive savings. That is ammunition for a real rebuild. and a real rebuild is ripping the house off the foundation and building another one. With Tom Brady and John Spytek trying to give everything a new identity, high draft picks are gold. They mean cheap talent. They mean scheme fit. They mean flexibility. And being straight with you, Las Vegas still feels like it is trying to figure out what it wants to be. Hiring Carroll brought a sense of order, but it also feels like a bridge. A guy to hold the wheel while the franchise decides the final blueprint. Look at the examples people point to. One team held onto an elite pass rusher and paid a fortune guaranteed, and the offense stayed miserable. Another team waited too long to move a star and lost value because the timing vanished. The lesson is simple. When a relationship starts to sour, the prime clock does not wait. And with Crosby, you can feel he is not the type to swallow a polished script just to stay quiet. I am not saying trade him tomorrow. I am saying this debate is real, and the franchise is going to have to face it. And the way they are managing the end of this season is just the first signal. Now stay with me because Crosby himself is talking future and even pointing to a quarterback name he wants next to him. There is something that has me curious, and this is it. Max Crosby off the field these 2 weeks is still talking like a leader, and on his podcast he did something that flips a switch in any fan's head. He brought up Fernando Mendoza as a possible guy to run this team. Let's break it down. The new regime came in with Pete Carroll and John Spytek. The promise was organization and a quick jump. But the season hit a wall. We are near the end, and in reality, it feels like the start of a rebuild. It hurts, but that is where we are. And when you enter a rebuild, you cannot dodge the heaviest topic in football, quarterback. We have gone years without a QB who makes the fan base breathe easy in the fourth quarter. Every week, it is that feeling of, is today the day? And then the 2026 draft shows up as the clearest route. If the team loses these last two and the battle with the Giants breaks our way, you can land the first pick. Then you're not asking for luck. You pick your guy. And in that scenario, the name hovering is Mendoza out of Indiana. What Crosby said was not empty hype. He described him as big, with an arm to hit every throw and with better mobility than people expect. He also praised his presence, and he talked about his speeches, like the kind of talk that sticks with you. I'll admit it, I laughed a little. Crosby praising speeches is new to me. To me, that is Crosby thinking beyond his own body. That is him looking at the future of the Shield. And that is the kind of read you get right here. From a fan-first lens, it is not a team press release. It is not a rehearsed line. But then comes the part that splits fans in silver and black. If you are talking about drafting a QB at the top, you are admitting the current roster is not the center of the plan, and that moves everything. It hits veterans. It hits guys fighting for extensions. It even changes how you build the offense. Because a rookie needs protection, a run game, and patience. A lot of patience. And here is where I talk like the stands. It is not just about talent for me. I want to know if the kid can handle the pressure of Las Vegas. If he can walk into Allegiant and say, yeah, this is my team now. Because the fan base is not asking for perfection. It is asking for courage and command. If Crosby is already buying into that idea, it is because he wants a new face to lead. Or because he knows the franchise is turning the page with or without him, and that changes the entire offseason vibe. Talk to me in the comments. Would you bet everything on Fernando Mendoza, or do you want a different route? And stay with me, because it is not just the offense that needs decisions. On defense, Eric Stokes has turned into a huge question for 2026. Look at how a bad season can still create a few finds in the middle of the chaos. In the middle of a 2-13 year that hurts, there is a guy on defense who has become a steady point, Eric Stokes. And the question for the front office is direct. Do you keep this guy for 2026, or do you let him become another good jersey walking out the door for nothing? Stokes came in on a 1-year deal. No fireworks, no hype, just work. And what he delivered is exactly what we beg for when the team is bleeding, consistency. On a roster that is thin at corner, he became the most reliable and the most experienced. And that matters because the NFL is ruthless when your secondary is weak. If you do not have a corner who can hold up in man coverage, your defense becomes a target every Sunday. The interesting part is how much respect his name has earned inside the building. Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator, talked about Stokes in a way you can feel. He started with the obvious physical traits: speed, length, burst. That is what you look for in a corner. But then he said something I loved. He called Stokes all business. No joking, no playing around. Graham even said he tried to mess with him during stretch lines and got shut down, like the not today. I laughed because that says a lot about focus. And for a team heading into a decision-heavy offseason, that kind of professionalism is gold. Because Stokes is not just a guy who covers, he becomes an example for the young group coming up. Graham also said he is constantly talking football, alignments, receiver tendencies, small details. That is what a real vet does. He shares knowledge without making it about himself. Then comes the dilemma. What is it worth to keep the best corner on the roster on a new deal? Because there will be competition. If he played well in this rough context, there is always a team thinking, put him in a steadier scheme and he gets even better. And we know how it goes. When a player feels the market, the price rises. But I look around and think, if you let Stokes walk, who replaces him? The draft, free agency, a trade, all of that costs, and it costs a lot. Especially if the plan is a rebuild and you already need to invest heavily in quarterback, offensive line, and more impact pieces. So for me, this is not romantic. It is strategic. If the number is fair, I sit down and extend him. You need pillars on defense, even if you only have a few. And for a team trying to turn the page, having a stable corner helps the defense breathe and helps the whole scheme function. But if the price comes in outside reality, you have to be cold. You cannot pay like a contender when you are building a base. That is the thin line, and I want to see if the team has the guts to choose correctly. And speaking of guts, the next story is about an offense change that might have finally found a lane, and it includes a rookie name plus praise from Geno Smith. Let me tell you something. When a season is going off the rails, any adjustment that works feels like a miracle. And the Raiders, after getting punched all year in the interior offensive line, may have found a fit with two simple decisions. And the name flipping that switch is rookie Caleb Rogers. We have seen everything at right guard. Attempts, rotations, improvising, nothing held up. Especially after the hole left when Jackson Powers Johnson went out and the team kept trying to patch it with whatever was available. The result was pressure up the middle. Runs dying before they even started. The offense stalling on drives that should have been easy. Then, over the last few weeks, they started giving Rodgers more snaps, and he answered. Not perfect, sure, but he competes. And there is a huge difference between surviving and competing. He is not stepping in scared. He is stepping in trying to win the rep. And that changes the vibe in the huddle. Geno Smith talked about it too. He praised Rodgers' development over the year and said that when the kid got his opportunities, he went out there and played well. And Geno said it the way quarterbacks do. You might want to dominate, but the NFL is going to test you against monsters. He named defensive linemen that are straight up nightmares, like Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, and Abdul Carter. Those matchups do not just punish you, they teach you. You take your lumps today, and you learn for the rest of your career. And it was not just Rodgers by himself. The team shuffled chairs inside. Alex Kappa moved to center. Rodgers slid to right guard. And in this small sample, it feels like the communication got cleaner. Protection improved. The run game got a little more space. Against the Texans, who have a brutal defense, the Raiders held up better than I expected. There were drives that moved because the interior did not collapse on first contact. And here is the point. This could become a spark for 2026. I am not selling the illusion of we found the dream line, not even close. But when you learn a rookie can be a real rotation piece, you change the offseason map. Maybe you do not have to spend everything in one spot. Maybe you can spread it out and build depth, which is what is missing. And I liked seeing Pete Carroll praise the unit too. He knows the line is a thermometer. If the interior holds, the offense breathes. If it does not hold, nothing happens. That simple, and in a season of forced learning, watching a rookie earn his snaps the right way is a hidden win. But it also raises the pressure, because now fans will ask, why did it take so long to test this? Why did this combo only show up now? And if this was the lane, how many games bled out before it? And that is where we leave the detail and step into the overall feeling this all leaves behind. Breathe with me here, because the picture is heavy, but it is not dead. We talked about 2 games that turned into a future decision. We talked about Max Crosby being protected and even becoming the center of big business talk. We talked about Crosby bringing up Fernando Mendoza as a name to lead. We talked about Eric Stokes holding it down on defense. And we talked about Caleb Rogers showing up as a late solution on an interior line that has been a headache all year. That is a lot for a 2-13 team, right? And it is. Here is what gets me. The Raiders are at a rare crossroads. If you try to win everything right now, you risk boosting pride and hurting your draft path. If you only think draft, you scrape the culture Pete Carroll is trying to plant. plant. And culture does not grow from speeches, it grows from hard Sundays. I am going to plant a bold flag. This team is close to making a decision that defines the next 5 years, not the next 5 games. Because if you hit on quarterback, everything changes. If you miss, it becomes another patchwork cycle. And at the same time, you cannot tear everything down and expect the locker room to accept it quietly. That is why names like Stokes matter. That is why a rookie like Rodgers matters. That is why Crosby talking about Mendoza is not just talk. It is a leadership temperature check. Now I want to hear you. Drop a comment. This space belongs to everyone who lives and breathes Raiders football. Do you want the team to stay the course and aim for the top of the draft, or do you want them to go out these next 2 weeks and bite to win, no matter the cost? Because the way it sits, whichever direction the franchise chooses comes with a price.